Peace. You are tuned into Black Ice TV 7. This is Zaza Ali. Much love and respect to all my people out in the UK. Peace and love. Always love coming and building with my brother, and I will definitely be back to build with my people in the UK real soon. Peace.
Toured with him for 7 years and really got a chance to like dig in and
no one can deny that I've got the qualifications. Let me get this qualification. Let me get this qualification.
Yeah, greetings and welcome again to another one of our PACM or Mojo session. And today, as you can see, we have a very esteemed panel with us today. And we have with us at the moment, we have Professor Obati Shaka with us and also Sister Koji Chakalia. We are respecting Professor Small and Professor Tafara. So as they come in, as they arrive, I'll put them into the chat. But as usual, before we get into proceedings, we'll hand you over to Undugu Umani, who will be changing the vibrations for us.
Santi Sana, Undugu. And also Santi Sana and Santeni Sana to Jamal, Hamjambo, to all the family who are watching. And greetings as well as also we have here with us MZ Pepakai, senior elder of the Pan-African Congress movement. And my name is Ndugu Imani. Ndugu means brother in Kiswahili. Kiswahili is the language that we use in Pan-African Congress movement because at the 6th Pan-African Congress, it said that when we have a united Africa in whatever formation that we decide upon, that the best language we could use as a lingua franca would be Kiswahili because so many of our people speak it so across the continent. So, but having respect for all the languages and cultures that already exist in Africa, but a way that we can all speak in an African tongue with each other. So that's why we use Kiswahili. So we're going to start with a ritual that we call Mwabadiliko ya Nishati in Kiswahili, which means the changing of energy. And it's a form of libation, but with the libation we can use many things: alcohol, water, and energy. And this we're going to be using our energy because this is something that I created. The ancestors helped me to create, and from the guidance of other practitioners, so that when we're in this space, in this virtual space, we can still join each other through spirit and energy. Even though we don't have the pleasure of being in a company as we would love to be, but we still, as we are one vibration, still able to connect with each other, and this reinforces that and gives us our ritual. So, as African spirituality isn't dogma, it's about love and sharing and becoming into our own authentic selves. Please, if you wish to take part, please do. But if you don't, that's absolutely fine. Please watch. This is not only us reinforcing our culture and energy, but it's also a teaching tool. So everything that I say, you'll see translations in English. So some things are used in Kiswahili, some are Kemetic terms, and some have the terms from the tradition of Vodon. But if you wish to just listen and watch, that's absolutely fine. If you wish to take part, please do so. But before we begin, we need to get ourselves into the right frame of mind and right spirit. And so we're going to use our breath to do that. So we're going to breathe together, because breath is that link between our physical state and our spiritual state. Breath is life and breath is life. So as we do so, I will count in Kiswahili, and as we breathe, what we're going to do is we're going to breathe out and expel the air from our lungs. As we do, we're going to pull our stomachs in. This is sometimes called pot belly breathing. Pull our stomachs in, and that forces the air out, and then we relax our stomach, and it forces the air in through our nose, and that'd be 1. Okay, and the spirits tell me that we'll do that 4 times. 4, because that's a number for foundation, for growth, a spiritual number for growth, for abundance and health. Okay, but before I do anything and start, I have esteemed elders in front of me. My own elder, Mzee Pepakai, and of course Mzee Tishaka and Dada Kuchijagulia. So do I have your permission to begin before I start?
You do.
All right, Asante Sana. So we're going to begin. Asante Sana means thank you very much in Kiswahili. So what we're going to do, and Mzee means elder, and Dada means sister. Okay, so before we start, as we're going to begin, if we can sit straight in whichever seat we're in, palm of hands on our thighs, back straight, so our spine is straight, so that our 7 energy centers that the Hindu Kush called chakra are in line. I'm going to close our eyes, and we're going to breathe out through our mouth by pulling the stomach in. So if we close our eyes or keep our eyes open, if you feel comfortable, breathe out. Hold it, relax, breathe in. Moja. Breathe out. Relax and breathe in. Mbili. Breathe out. Hold it. Relax. Breathe in. Tatu. Should always start to feel calmer, more centered. Breathe out. Hold it. Relax and breathe in. In there. We can open our eyes now. And so now we should feel more centered, more present, be focused on where we are now, what we're doing, rather than what's happened to us or where we're going, but here, and away from where our enemies want us to be, which is to be animalistic, emotional, and reactive, but calm and centered in full possession of our power. So, as I said, Mabadiliko Yinsati, I'm an African spiritual life coach, and so this is something that I do every day, and I share this with the organization. So, I'm going to share my screen. Ndugu. There we go. Let me know when everyone can see that.
Yeah, hold on, let me. Yep.
Oh, okay.
Okay. And so if you can't see it, I'll be reading it out so you can follow. Okay, so Mabadiliko ya Nishati, change of energy. So to change the energy or vibration, we now thank the powers to ask that we have a closer connection with them and they assist us in manifesting our objectives. In order to do that, we're going to bring this and play this triangle chime. Triangle, these 3 sides are very spiritual number of creation, of energy, of being coming into being. I'm going to ring it. Spirit tells me 7 times. 7 because 7 is the spiritual number for wisdom, seeking, and truth. And we see it so many times through all existence. 7 days of the week, 7 layers to the skin, 7 openings to the body, 7 of Ninguza Saba, 7 laws of Tahuti, So we're going to ring it 7 times as we do. Continue to breathe deeply. Leave your eyes open or closed as you feel. And let the vibration go around you, through you, and over you. As you do that, it opens up our consciousness, our third eye. And as we open up that consciousness and join with universal consciousness, the all, we join with each other wherever we may be in the world. So now I'll begin, and I'll count in Kiswahili to keep time. And I'll begin. Moja. Mbili. Tatu. Ine. Tano. Sita. Saba. Okay, we continue with the ritual. And so we're invocating these powers, these energies. They're not outside of us, they're within us. So here we come to the call and response. So I'll begin, and then we'll say together, Sisi ni kitu kimoja, yeah? Sisi ni kitu kimoja, which in Kiswahili means we are one, or we are the same thing. A very powerful affirmation that we are bringing into being and understanding. So, ninaomba ya muumba au wote, I call upon the Creator or the All. Sisi ni kitu kimoja. Ninaomba ya nebacha.
Sisi ni kitu kimoja.
Now, one of the Lawa of the Buddha tradition. Ninaomba kanuni na nguvu. I call upon the principle and power of Mamiwata.
Sisi ni kitu kimoja.
And now on to the underlying principles of all existence, essence of the all, the Creator. Ninaomba kanuni na nguvu ya Shu. Sisi ni kitu kimoja. Ninaomba kanuni na nguvu ya Tefnut. Sisi ni kitu kimoja. Ninaomba kanuni na nguvu ya Nut. Sisi ni kitu kimoja. And then we go on to the Paut Netaru, the Kemetic Tree of Life, the spiritual science to bring the human being into balance with all existence, and thereby bringing ourselves into balance, we bring existence into balance, our divine purpose. Ninaomba kanuni na nguvu ya Geb.
Sisi ni kitu kimoja.
Ninaomba kanuni na nguvu ya Auset.
Sisi ni kitu kimoja.
Ninaomba kanuni na nguvu ya Sebek.
Sisi ni kitu kimoja.
Ninaomba kanuni na nguvu ya Hetaru.
Sisi ni kitu kimoja.
Ninaomba kanuni na nguvu ya Haru.
Sisi ni
kitu kimoja. Ninaomba kanuni na nguvu ya Herakuti.
Sisi ni kitu kimoja.
Ninaomba kanuni na nguvu ya Maat. Sisi ni kitu kimoja. Ninaomba kanuni na nguvu ya Sakar. Sisini Kitu Kumoja.
Kumoja.
Ninamba Kanunina Nguvu ya Tahuti. Sisini Kitu Kumoja.
Kumoja.
Ninamba Kanunina Nguvu ya Alsa.
Sisini
Kitu Kumoja.
Kumoja.
Ninaomba kanuni na nguvu ya Amen. Kitu Kumoja.
Kumoja.
And now that we've already given thanks and recognition to the first ancestor, the All, we now can call upon those ancestors in our direct bloodline who we should never forget. So I'll begin. Ninaomba Mami yangu, my mother, Audrey Mae Kelly. Sisini Kitu Kumoja.
Kumoja.
Please, brothers and sisters, if you have people in your bloodline you wish to call into our presence, please do.
Lloyd, return to Milton Holmes, Andy Thompson.
Sisini Kitu Kumoja.
Kitu Kumoja.
William and Sylvia Bradley.
Sisini Kitu Kumoja.
Gladys Lloyd, Charles Lloyd, Daryl Lloyd, Terrence Lloyd.
Sisini Kitu Kumoja.
Kumoja. Ninaomba Aislinn Rattigan, mother. Ninaomba Sylvester Rattigan, grandfather. Ninaomba Ruth James, great grandmother.
Sisini Kitu
Kumoja.
Brian King and Damian King, my son and grandson.
Sisini Kitu Kumoja.
Kumoja.
Niniamba, grandfather James, grandmother Amy, grandfather Waldy, and grandmother Daisy.
Sisini Kitu Kumoja.
Isabel Legard, my grandmother. I named earlier my mother and father and my two brothers who have passed. Isabel Legard.
Sisini Kitu Kumoja.
Kumoja. Ninaomba grandmother Louise Hines.
Sisini Kitu Kumoja.
Kumoja.
Kamal Saitu has been passed away.
Sisini Kitu Kumoja.
Niniamba, Auntie Mary.
Sisini Kitu Kumoja.
Kumoja.
Okay, there's no one else? That's absolutely fine. And so now we can go on to those ancestors who have left us a tremendous legacy, who gave their lives, their time, their effort for the liberation of our people. I'll begin. Ninaomba Mzee, the Honorable Marcus Mazar Garvey. Sisini Kitu Kumoja.
Kumoja.
Niniambo, Harriet Tubman.
Sisini Kitu Kumoja.
Ninaomba brother Tagel, brother Doggy, and sister Jan.
Sisini Kitu Kumoja.
Kumoja.
Dada Mary Ellen Pleasant.
Sisini Kitu Kumoja.
Kumoja.
Niniambo, Babatunde.
Sisini Kitu Kumoja.
Kumoja. Ninaomba Sheikh Amadou Bamba and Helen Saturi Jatta.
Sisini Kitu Kumoja.
Kumoja.
Niniambo, Brother Kenny, Brother Berenge. Sisini Kitu
Kumoja.
Kumoja.
Anyone else wish to call? No? Okay. And so then now we can call upon those ancestors who we don't always know their names, but they left us that tremendous legacy of their commitment and their fight, and for us to learn, and those that we should never forget. The ones we first should call upon are those of the Mangamazi. Ninaomba Mababu ya Mangamazi.
Sisini
Kitu Kamoja.
Kamoja.
Ninaomba Mababuya Asian Revolution. Sisini Kitu Kamoja.
Kamoja.
Ninaomba Mababuya Gula Vita, those who fought in the Gula Wars. Sisini Kitu Kamoja.
Kamoja.
Ninaomba Mababuya Taifa la Mosai, the Mosai Nation. Sisini Kitu Kamoja.
Kitu Kamoja.
Ninaomba Mababuya Watuya Kori. That's what the our brothers and sisters in Australia call themselves. Now Papua New Guinea, now West Papua, now Tasmania, now Dravidians. Sisini Kitu Kamoja.
Kamoja.
Ninaomba Mababuya APLA, now SWAPO, now Freedom and Land Party, now Black Panthers. Sisini Kitu Kamoja.
Kamoja.
Ninaomba Mababuya. Yes, Ninaomba Mababuya Mataifa ya Kemet, na Taseti, na Kush, na Nubia. Sisini Kitu Kamoja.
Kamoja.
And then our first peoples, the first civilizers. Ninaomba Mababuya Watuya San, na Twa, na Hutu. Sisini Kitu Kamoja.
Kitu Kamoja.
Ninawaomba wanaishi ambao watatetea sisi, na wale mababu ambao bado hawajazaliwa. Sisini Kitu Kamoja.
Kitu Kamoja.
And we end on the affirmation and words of power that we say with the energy. And we bring them, our words and power, our vibration, and bring them into being. So thus follow after me. Nguvu zote
Nguvu zote
kwa watu wetu,
kwa watu wetu,
mapenzi ya wote
mapenzi ya wote,
ni mapenzi yetu,
ni mapenzi yetu.
hakuna mwanzo
Hakuna mwanzo
na hakuna mwisho.
na hakuna mwisho.
Anuk, amen.
Anuk,
Amen.
All power to our people. The will of the all is our will. There is no beginning and there is no end. I am, amen. Asanteni sana, Jamal.
asante sana.
Asante sana, Ndogramani, and thank you very much,
Karibu.
Asante sana, for that.
I just want to say, just before I leave, it's so honor to see you, MZ, Baba Smalls, and some of what you saw there is because of your teaching. So thank you very much for helping me on my journey.
Thank you for being on your journey.
Asante, asante.
Asante sana, Ndogramani.
Okay, I will leave you now until the end to close this meeting with the ending ritual. So have a good session. I'll be listening, and love and peace and honor.
Asante.
Honor, respect.
Asante sana. Okay. Yes, and I'd like to welcome everybody again to this Sunday, the PSCM Moses sessions. These are sessions by the PSCM that take place each Sunday between the hours of 6 and 8 Greenwich Mean Time. Now, this session has been going on in this format since the lockdown in March of last year. But the PSCM as a whole have been running these sessions on a Sunday since 1975. And the PSCM itself is an organization that grew out of the 6th Pan-African Congress held in Dar es Salaam in 1974, when a delegation from the UK attended that conference. It was a delegation of individuals from various organizations But on returning, the impact that the conference made on them, gave them the impetus to come together to form a new organization to promote Pan-Africanism. So the PSCM itself was born in 1975. It was originally termed the Pan-African Committee, but whereas in 1977 it adopted the name the Pan-African Congress Movement. One of the things the PSCM took away from the 1974 Congress was the practice of African Liberation Day. And since then, the PSCM has deemed the practice to introduce African Liberation Day onto these shores. So from 1975 up until present day, the PSCM has faithfully celebrated African Liberation Day each year. Another of the celebration it took on very early in its founding was Kwanzaa. And again, from it started Kwanzaa back in 1972, before the PSCM was formed by various other organizations, it has been a continuous thing. So we are very much a Pan-Africanist organization, and we do have branches up and down the country, and it is our aim to liaise and link with fellow sister Pan-African organization throughout the Pan-African world. So it's an honor to have these esteemed guests today, Dr. Obati Shaka, Sister Kojo Chakalia, and Professor Small. And Obati Shaka and Professor Small are no strangers to the Pan-African Congress movement. They've been to many of our meetings, our conferences, our ALD celebrations, and it's always a great pleasure to have them. So I welcome you on board today, Sister Kojo Chakalia, and I hope it's the start of a great journey with us. Okay, so as we open up the floor now, I have a series of questions which I will pose, and also the viewers who are watching in will also be sending in questions and comments for us to address also. So as we can see, the theme today of the discussion is the implication of the Biden-Harris administration on the African American community, or the Black American community, and the Pan-African community worldwide in general. Now, I've used certain terms, and it'd be helpful if those can be expanded upon when the questions are answered, for the simple reasons these are terms that's coming up, terms such as ADOS, terms such as foundational African Americans. Now, these are terms that some of us are grappling with. How did they come about, and what do they actually mean and stand for? So hope you'll be able to give us a better insight into them. So the first question I'd like to pose, and I'll just put it up on screen now. And it's what is the overall feeling of the African American or Black American community regarding Biden's and Harris's, regarding Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, as regard to them? Is it one of support? Is it one of indifference? Or is it one of hostility? So that's the first question I'd like to pose. So I think if I start off with Dr. Shaka, Obati Shaka, I'll start off with you. So if you'd like to start the ball rolling by addressing that first, please.
Yeah, Brother Small, it's good to see you, brother.
Good to see you, sir. Kojo Chakalia. It's been
Yes,
a
my brother. I haven't seen you since the World Conference of Racism, but
I know.
good to see you against racism. Yes.
Yeah, to start off, to start this off, what is the overall feeling in the African American or Black American community regarding the Biden-Harris? Is it one of support, indifference, or hostility? Well, first of all, the Biden-Harris administration is a creation largely of the power of Black people in this country, and then a coalition of Latinos, Asians, and Native Americans, and 37% of whites in the Democratic Party that supported that. But Blacks played the leading role, and the main reason was of Trump. And Trump had brought on what I'd call a viruside. His handling of COVID-19 has been a form of genocide. I call it viruside, that is genocide through a virus. And he did everything wrong, which was he did almost nothing. And he also racialized the virus, and largely because he refused to do any kind of testing, any kind of mandates on mass social distancing, and any kind of national program, because this is a pandemic, it's global, and it really requires a global response, but at least a national response. And once he saw that the people who are dying were Black and Latino, he decided to do nothing, and then said he would delegate it to the states and blame the states. And then he did, with his racist mindset, apparently didn't understand that the virus wasn't racist like him. It was non-discriminatory. And so then it began to kill whites in the blue states. But because they're blinded by racism, they said he didn't handle this right. The overwhelming majority of people in the country said he didn't handle this virus or this COVID-19 right, but they didn't blame him. That was the white people. Black people blamed him, brown people blamed him, red people blamed him, yellow people blamed him, and a minority of intelligent white people blamed him. And so the major motive behind the campaign, what became Biden-Harris, was COVID. And then the major force that enabled us to put him out was Black Lives Matter, because it was that motion in the ocean that created motion in 50 states and 50 countries, and that created an activism that spilled over into the election. And that activism activated a lot of folks. It shifted opinion even among some whites, but it particularly activated youth. And so Biden, who's a white racist candidate, he was the white president. Trump was swept out by a coalition led by Blacks. So when you ask what's the Black attitude, Blacks put him there. So this is the key point to understand. Biden had a weak campaign when he was running for president. He lost money and support because, frankly, he's over the hill in terms of age. Even Obama had told him not to run, and he had a joke on the side, watch out, he'll F up. And then during the campaign, he was saying all the old people should drop out. That was mainly aimed at Bernie Sanders because Obama's a moderate and did not like the radical policies of Bernie Sanders. But he was also telling Biden he should get out. But what happens in South Carolina is when nobody's doing well and Biden is doing terrible, he hasn't won a single primary, Black people in South Carolina rescued him. Then the Democratic Party establishment got behind him and told all other candidates to drop out because none of them were doing that well anyway, including Buttigieg, who's the first gay candidate for president, has now been nominated into his administration. So it was with that, but it was the victory that he achieved in South Carolina that gave him the base for that. And it was clear that it was the Black base that would sail him to the presidency. And so he knew then he had to make a commitment to pick a black candidate for vice president. And then he also knew this: black women had emerged as the strongest force among blacks, both in Black Lives Matter and in the whole electoral politics campaign of getting out the vote. As you've seen in Georgia, it got flipped from red to blue. And there was a bunch of networks in Georgia that black networks that mobilized that black vote. So it was the black vote that did it, along with the Asian, Latino, Native American, and a minority of whites. But blacks drove it. So, but in terms of the overall attitude in the beginning, the attitude was indifferent towards Harris because of her being involved as a prosecutor and whatnot. And Biden was not the top choice of most people in this country. However, in South Carolina, he was because of his association with Obama. And that was a mainstream kind of, or the moderate group, but Southern blacks. But they also had the smarts to know he could probably win. So the overall attitude is his base is coming from blacks and people of color, and the Democratic Party has generally ignored that base. Mm-hmm. And largely the reason why that black base mobilized was through a black effort, not through the Democratic Party's effort. So that's what I would say overall about that. Now, within the black community, you have radical blacks, you have moderate blacks, you have a few conservative blacks, very few. So those views will be all over the place, but in general, there's real support for the Biden-Harris administration, but it's critical support. It's a support that's saying that if you want to keep our support, you're going to have to do certain things.
Okay, that's great. So I don't know. We can go on now to Professor Small. The same question.
Over pretty much laid it out. I just want to say that it was South Carolina that took Obama over when he was up against Clinton, because Clinton made the wrong statement towards Martin Luther King, and the black people of South Carolina wiped out of the race. And there is a black Bible Belt that runs from South Carolina through to Texas, along the Gulf of Mexico and into Middle America. And if South Carolina voted a certain way, that Bible Belt votes that way heavily. That's also the foundation of the movement that Dr. King built in the South. And so once that Southern black vote, where the majority of our people still live, and made that move, the rest of the black community is going to take heed. We did it twice for Obama, and we did it again with this man. I don't think most blacks who are conscious of politics are under any illusion about what a president or a vice president can do. There is a government in the United States. It's made up of the Senate, the House of Representatives, the president, vice president, and then there's another government. And that part of the government involves 9,000 plus people whose core leadership is appointed and approved by the president and that Congress. So these are the people who manage and direct all of the other aspects of government that really writes policy, do policy, makes policy, and presents it to the president. And we rarely know their names. And unless we pay attention to that part in terms of these appointees, we are happy to see the appointees in the cabinet. That's very visible, immediate. But the appointees of all of these other agencies and programs that administer the policy and the will of the government on a daily basis, we rarely pay attention to. and I may be exaggerating or not saying enough. We're talking about 9,000 people. And then you have other aspects. You've got 28 intelligence agencies in America. We like to say the CIA, but that's the umbrella. See, there's 28 intelligence apparatus in this country. And then we've got the FBI and all of its appendages, okay? And then we like to talk about the State Department and the Pentagon, but nobody ever asks, what's in it? Who are these people? What are they doing? So this is a massive government. I was never once afraid that Trump would not step down, because Oba and I know you either step down or they'll lay you down, because you're not really the government.
That's right.
You are the managing instrument. You are the protocol officer. You have been elected to be the drum major and to carry out policy in the public sphere. But the people making these policies, we never even know their names.
That's right.
The people writing even these speeches, people, we don't know them. What we do know is thanks to the work of Black Lives Matter, and I give Black Lives Matter their due, but there was 1,000 other Black organizations, small ones, big ones, involved, and we call them, in terms of umbrella, all Black Lives Matter, even though they had varied ideologies. We need to thank all of them, and thanks Black Lives Matter for allowing for that unity to take place under their umbrella. Because that's important, because at the end of the day now, we have to do something we haven't done very well before. Help write the policies that's going to affect our communities. And if there's any advantage to having the multiple Blacks in the cabinet, that's one of the main advantages. And working with the Senate and the House of Representatives, because if we can't make sure that the policies we want is in the hands of the people who implement them, we're going to be in trouble. Because this is a fundamental question of value system and ideology. The ideology in America is that of racism, classism, and casteism, with us at the bottom. That hasn't changed with this election. The possibility of some change has occurred, but that hasn't changed. Mainly because most of the people that got elected don't understand what racism is. You know, they don't even understand classism, even on the right, when they're talking about socialists and leftists. They don't even understand. They practice this classism every day. They practice this racism. It's a part of the ideology of state. It is the culture of the government. And how do we change that? And I think that's one of our key things. How do we change that? And how do we make sure that the agenda that the government is undertaking includes proposals from us that we think will affect significant change in the Black community? And I'm not into the people of color thing. That's cool. But all of the other ethno community that we lump under people of color have a base, have a foundation. They are organized, you see. And we, the African American, is the only nation in America that don't have an external national base. The Puerto Ricans can go back to Puerto Rico, Mexicans can go to Mexico, the Nigerians can go to Nigeria, the Ghanaians can go to Ghana. We got no place to go except as the guest of somebody. So our attitude on how to continue to build a nation within a nation have not truly been expressed in terms of electoral politics in the way I think it could be, and eventually I'm sure it will be, without becoming an antagonistic force. But people really don't understand the African Americans' place and role in the American system. Even African Americans don't. And it's been a problem. And so I see some of your other questions coming up. That will explain why an ADOS can arrive and the other thing can arise. But we'll get to that when we get there. But I think there's an opportunity and this new administration for some significant progress on the part of America as a whole in dealing with systemic racism, on the part of the African American in dealing with the responsibility to build their ethnic nation as all other ethnic nations have built themselves. This is not a monolith in America. It is a relationship between multiple ethnic nations. And we're the weakest ethnic nation economically and culturally. We should be the absolute strongest. Politically, we always raise our voice, as we just did in this election. We did twice for Obama, to show we have that kind of political will and power. But we don't have the economic and cultural strength that would let us stand alone as the Indians stand alone and the Jews stand alone and the Mexicans stand alone and the Italians stand alone, and yet still are Americans.
Okay. So, Sister Kujichagulia, like to?
Well, a lot of, the truth has been told, as Dr. Sashaka and Smalls have said. Basically, the people in the Black people population in the United States aren't as politicized as most would like them to be. People are basically just totally relieved that Donald Trump is no longer the president, number one. Number two, again, how much can Biden and Harris do? We already have had one Black president. So a female Black vice president cannot do more than one male Black president. However, they don't have the power. They are the mouthpiece. They are the facade of the government. As Dr. Smalls was saying, there are a bunch of other organizations and corporations. And if we don't look at the corporations who actually control the country and the policies of the country, because everything is based on capitalism. And capitalism, as we know, created racism. So the objective of America has always been to protect and serve. Protect racism, serve the interest of capitalism. So everything that happens in the government is done with those two missions in mind. Whatever it is, racism is always protected, and capitalism, the interests of capitalism, are served. So if it had not been, I want to go back to all those people who are out protesting against racism, protesting against injustice around the world. That forced Biden to choose Kamala Harris as his running mate, had to put someone Black, and it didn't hurt that she was a female. So that was all part of the plan to get the vote. However, the vote does not change racism, does not change capitalism. Until we start looking at this very real foundation of white psychopathy, which is the foundation of racist capitalism based on white psychopathy, nothing is really going to change. We are sitting still on the Titanic. It doesn't matter who's at the helm. It doesn't matter what group is where. The ship is going down. And our job is to rescue as many of us as possible. Unfortunately, most of us do not understand racism, and we do not understand our cultural heritage and connection and the power that we have to change the world, which is why it is not taught anywhere or promoted. So our job, I see very clearly for me, I like to focus on the root of the problem. Once we kill the root, the tree dies. So you cannot have a racist tree standing if we kill the root of white psychopathy. And I want to be clear about white psychopathy. It's a term, excuse me, that I use because I refuse to call psychopathy supremacy. There's nothing supreme about a mental illness. So psychopathy is actually an antisocial mental disorder of extreme egoism, narcissism, and a lack of empathy for others. It is distinguished by a persistent attitude of the violation of the human, civil, and social rights of other human beings. So this is how America was founded. This is America's religion. Divide and conquer is how we got here. Divide and conquer is how we stay here. And as we go into the conversation of these different groups with different names, it comes back to the reality of divide and conquer, because we have not learned how to unify ourselves since we have been so terribly destroyed with the dysfunction of white psychopathy. So we have got to learn how to, number one, start labeling ourselves and stop accepting all the other titles and labels others give to us. We have been told that we do not have economic wealth and power. We have a lot of economic power. We give it away. African Americans rank 12th in the world as a nation financially. We have almost $2 trillion of spending power. But what do we do with that spending power? We give it away to designers and all kinds of things that do not support us as a people and finance our ability to move forward in liberty and freedom for ourselves. The main thing that we have got to do, because every second we are speaking, every child, people are being programmed into the myth of white psychopathy. So now you take an office. It doesn't matter what that office is or what your job title is. Your framework, your mentality is based in white psychopathy. Until we destroy the myth of white supremacy, there's very little that's going to change in terms of racism, because racism is based on the myth of white supremacy. And I always say that, the myth of white supremacy. We cannot say those two words without putting the myth or the lie in front of it, because saying white supremacy, we reinforce or we enable that concept to live. We have to be clear, this is white psychopathy. And this psychopathy is an illness and a sickness that is destroying the entire planet, which has got everyone on the planet living in dysfunction. And until we realize that and come back to the reality of our humanness, as we did in the beginning, centered ourselves in our spirit, very little that we do is going to be long lasting, or is going to really affect change. Until we eliminate the root of all of these ills, this tree will continue to bear fruit. And our job, my job, is to kill the root.
Okay, that's fine. So finally, a voice from, say, outside the States now, Elder Pepperkai. Can you give a brief answer to how you see things? Hold on, you're still muted.
Let me begin by saying how happy I am to be in this gathering, because when we look at this topic and who to invite to bring on, my head is...
I'm not sure that noise is coming. All right, could everybody who's not speaking just mute, please, and just see if it's... Okay, it's all right, I've done it. Okay, carry on.
You're not still there.
Yeah, I think everybody's mute. Let me see. Let me just... Yeah. Everybody's muted. Yeah, oh, it's all right. It's gone now.
Yes. Let me continue by saying how happy and pleased I am, because we want to make sure we had at least one female. And I don't know where we find this sister from, but she's standing for 10 females. I'm glad to have her. Let me also say that Brother Talker mentioned how far back our relationship with Obati goes. This relationship, a special relationship that goes back over 45 years. We're very good at starting relationships. We're very poor in maintaining them. So I'm very happy and pleased. I haven't seen my good brother for over 10 years, and him look more younger today than when I last saw him. He knows how to look after himself, and I'm so pleased to see him. In this special relationship, the Pan-African Congress Movement and PAPO, Pan-African People's Organization, have worked closely over the years to the point when PAPO would organize ALD to coincide so Obati and Sister Nacha Tashaka would fly over to the UK and take part in ALD. That's how close, that's how special. And that's the reward that we've reaped and benefit from that relationship. And the reason why I pick up this book and held in my hand, which is Shaka's book he mentioned, is because the words that come out of our sister's mouth when she talk about white psychopath, whatever the term is, I'll have to write it down and get the right spelling. Because supremacy is a misnomer. It didn't exist. And what the sister says on the button, it's a virus, it's a disease. That's what it is. And the sister put it into perspective. And if she said nothing more for the rest of the day, she made a contribution 1,000,000 times. And I'm so happy. Now, let me go on to my brother Small. Because I met him years ago when Dr. Ben invited me up to City College to have lunch. And when I got there, it was Dr. Ben, Dr. Clark, Professor Jeffries, and Professor Small, and Scobie. And Professor Small was a baby at the family at that time, and no big old man, you know. And in fact, our sister who come here today is stopped it with a gathering of old men. But I remember in the Gaines book of that title that these old men got together, decided to do something that they haven't been done before. Now, these two warrior scholars, they're veterans, and there's nothing we can think of that they haven't done. I mean, as I said, Shaka is a brilliant academic, a brilliant professor, a brilliant warrior scholar, and although I'm a boy compared to him in age, although I look as old as him, he's my teacher, a brother who I love, respect, and I used to make about 4 or 5 trips to the States yearly and to buy books. And when I landed in New York, I said, Shaka, I'm here. Shaka said, look, make sure you come down and see us. And when I think of Sister Nassa's food, I get up down there quick. I do miss a trip. So it's lovely to see him. I love to see my brother Small. Let me try to answer the question. And it's good that my brother Shaka, my brother Small, and my beloved sister have answered the question. But let me say this. Because we are people are very good at reacting without study. And Brother Shaka made it quite crystal clear that had it not been for African American, Biden would not be where he is. But what did we get out of? What are we going to get out of it? Did we sit down with him and make demands? We damn well didn't. We're so glad to get rid of Trump. And as far as I'm concerned, nasty and vicious and evil and wicked as Trump is just a different wing of the same bird. They both fly the same way. They both defend white privilege, white genocide, white murder, white criminality, all of it. And sometimes I wonder, nasty as Trump is Biden any different? Because while Trump may move this pandemic a bit slower, Biden will accelerate it. And in fact, I really want to know what African Americans are thinking and doing around this COVID-19 issue. Because as far as I can see, that's the biggest threat. That's the biggest threat. Because the vaccine is the biggest false flag ever. It's bigger than September 11. Because what we're not looking at, What do they mean by the fourth industrial revolution? What do they mean by reset? What do they mean by Agenda 21? And that must be our focus, because the vaccine is a false flag. In fact, calling it vaccine is a misnomer. It's not a vaccine. This is something that they put together, pathogen. In fact, I've got it written down, and I'll pick it up and address it in a while. Because we is the fool. Because we don't study. We don't look at things in detail. We just react. So I'm saying, and when you think about Kamala Harris, she don't even know who she is.
All right. Hold on, we've got a series of questions coming up that will address that. So let me move on to the next question then. Yeah, and is that it? Yeah. And the next question is, you just mentioned that. So it says many African Americans, Black Americans community do not regard Kamala Harris as Black. So what's your view on that situation? Because I've watched many of, I've been trying to follow what's happening, and I've watched many of the times that that's been coming up. So what's your overall view on that situation?
Let me start.
Well, where we start, well, it just finished, because you just finished answer. So let me go back around. Let me go back to Albert.
Okay, I'll give way.
Okay. On the one hand, there's the political issue that when she was a candidate running for president and then had to drop out, progressive Blacks and progressive everybody else had trouble with her because she was a prosecutor and failed to prosecute a single police person, and also became state attorney general. And so there was a view, and I think it was a correct view, that she was not the best candidate, as there was a view that Biden wasn't in the primaries in the beginning. So that's the political thing. But then there's the complexity of that, because when she was district attorney, she did take a stand against capital punishment. And that stand was extremely unpopular. And in fact, when the sitting senator, Dianne Feinstein, who had formerly been mayor of San Francisco, presided over a funeral of a white cop killed by a Black man, which rarely happens. It's Blacks who are getting killed by cops all the time. She chewed her out. So on that, she stood on a principle. Now, it was smart also because she knew that the population in San Francisco was against the death penalty. So also, she wasn't going to lose an election campaign on that. But I'm going to say this. I know some things about Kamala Harris that hardly nobody else knows. I'm going to share a few things with you. And I'm not going to say she's the spook who sat by the door, because she made a career decision that she saw as a power decision, and it proved to be smart, but at the same time, not the decision that most Black people would make. But here's the key point. A lot of this view that you're running now comes from what I call the ignornet. There is the infonet, there's the Afronet, and there's the ignornet. My wife keeps me appraised of this ignornet. Now, she's Afrocentric, so don't get me wrong, but she listens to everybody. And so the ignornet is constantly talking about she isn't this, she isn't that. I heard some pork chop eating Negro talking about she married to a Jew, she ain't Black, but he's a Zionist. And then my wife is showing me his following, 1 million followers. That's the ignornet. So let me tell you a few things about her and her socialization. And this is not, I'm not endorsing her, I'm not opposing her, I'm just giving you a description of some stuff you don't know, hardly nobody knows. I was interviewed by the New York Times on Kamala Harris because I led the San Francisco Freedom Movement. That movement was the mother movement of all movements in California. It preceded the Black Panther Party. It gave birth to the Experimental College that was a forerunner of Black Studies at San Francisco State. It radicalized white students at UC Berkeley and led to the free speech movement. And Kamala Harris's mother and father who comes from Jamaica and ended up becoming a leading leftist economist, Marxist-oriented economist, first to be tenured at Stanford, Black person to be tenured, and her mother, who comes from India, who's as Black as midnight, but she's Indian, and she's mixed, within the Indian setting, but she comes from the Brahmin caste, but a progressive family. Those two meet at UC Berkeley in 1960, and this is what you haven't heard, because they have never put a name on this. Kamala Harris will say she was moved around in a stroller during the Black Freedom Movement of the 60s, which I led, but she was a baby. And that's her discussion of the politics. She's smart. She's not telling what really happened. But what really happened was her mother and father joined a study group at UC Berkeley called the Afro-American Association. And it was formed at the very beginning of the formation of the Afro-American Association. It was formed on UC Berkeley after Malcolm X had been brought out to speak, and the university had opposed it. They had him speak at the YMCA off campus. And then a guy named Donald Worden challenged the brother who was in charge of the NAACP, who brought Malcolm out, to a debate. He later became a vice chancellor of the UC system, he was then a student, to a debate on the issue of Black nationalism versus integration. And he basically argued, what would Oakland look like? What would the South look like when it was desegregated? And he said it would look like Oakland. He won that debate. And then out of that formed a study group, the Afro-American Association. And that was then just a study group before it became the Afro-American Association. And it had a left wing that was very radical. It had kind of a more conservative wing that Donald Worden represented in between. At its peak, when it becomes an organization, it had over 300 members. It had Huey Newton in it. It had Maulana Karenga in it. Ron Dellums in it. A guy named Judge Ramsey. It had some very conscious Black folks, grassroots as well as intellectual. It also had a brother in it who's a friend of mine. His name is Aubrey Labrie, who became an attorney, went to the same law school as Donald Worden, later named El Mansour. And he would have a close connection to Kamala Harris's mother and father. And he would play a major role in the socialization, not him, but his family and him, in the socialization of Kamala Harris. The mother and father, they were socialized and politicized by the Afro-American Association into African-American history, African-American culture, African-American politics. So what people don't know is the knowledge that the mother had, because she ends up raising the child. The father wanted co-custody when they divorced, but racism prevented that. He's very proud of his wife, of his daughter, and I'm sure he contributed to sending her to Howard. And notice, if she ain't Black, why'd she go to Howard? Because the mother and father both went to a white university, which was fine. It's the premier university in the United States and in the world, produces more Nobel laureates than anywhere else, but it's kind of white-itis when it comes to anything conscious. They got their consciousness through this Afro-American Association. So what I'd say is the mother got an in-depth understanding of African-American history and culture that is deeper than most Black parents have. That's point number one. She made the decision that her daughter would not be socialized as an Indian, but as a Black child, and told her that was it. And my friend Aubrey Labrie, part of whose library has been donated to me by him a couple of years ago, who was in charge of a magazine called Black Dialogue. And this was put together in the 70s. It was one of the most conscious political publications in the United States, and he was an acolyte of Malcolm X. You understand? So when the mother and the father divorced, and she lives in the Bay Area, Oakland, Berkeley, she goes to Aubrey Labrie. Aubrey Labrie then hooks her up with his aunt. And the aunt becomes the person that, first of all, schools them through preschool, hooks them up into a black church. The Bible that Kamala Harris used, she had 2 Bibles. One was from this aunt. So, yeah, she's got the Indian connection. When she was elected, when she was running for Attorney General, she sent back prayers. She sent to her relatives in India to pray in the temple for her victory. And by the way, India is a civilization founded by blacks. You understand? And it's the Indo-Aryans who conquered it later, but because they had to marry with blacks and they call themselves Aryan, Aryans won't accept them because they ain't hardly white. But they do have this Aryan culture. But this daughter, her mother, had a different view. So I understand that, and later her boyfriend was Willie Brown, who was Speaker of the Assembly, the most powerful black person in California. I know Willie. We made Willie, the San Francisco Freedom Movement that I led was key to his being able to be elected to office. He was a free lawyer for us. Anytime I want to get anything done from Willie, I just put my foot up his butt. But Willie's a good brother. And so they had a relationship, and Willie's a good 30 years older than her. She was being schooled in politics by probably one of the smartest politicians in the country. So all I'm saying is there's more to Kamala Harris than you think. And by the way, she made a comment, and I'm going to end on this one. She said, I'm not calling for restructuring the country. I'm calling for improving conditions for blacks and people of color and poor people and all of this. Now, the word restructuring, hardly a Democrat knows what that word means. Hardly a black person knows what that word means. I'm not suggesting she's a revolutionary. She is not. She's a moderate Democrat. That is why she was picked by Biden. But the fact of the matter is, there's more to her than you know. And that's all I'm saying. So for black folks, Negroes, as we call them, the ones that get on their knees and grow, who just know that every time you get a victory, it's a loss. One of the reasons why we're in such a weak position is we underestimate our strength. You understand? We underestimate our strength. And so that's what I would introduce on that. You need to know there's another side to Kamala Harris. You know what I mean? That's all you need to know.
Okay. All right. That's fine. So I'll go over to Professor Small now.
You got to unmute.
Yeah, let me.
Yes.
Try. Yeah.
I said my elder brother, Obitashaka, have shared some of this with me before, some months back before the election. I still put it in the category, there are possibilities of another side. Because we've had, since Reconstruction, multiple Africans in multiple strategic positions of governance in America. And I don't solely blame them because we know the limitations when you get in the office. A lot of that falls on your people to make sure that you keep the promise you made when you asked for their vote. And we haven't done that very well. You know, I cut my teeth on Mansour's Burn Baby Burn back in 67, 68, when I'd come down from the mountains to the church in Oakland to the Afro-American Association meeting. I didn't bump it. I mean, I should have seen, you know, but when you're young and you're being stupid like we all were in that early age. But we touched bases right about then. But I think Ms. Harris is an extraordinary thinker. I've been reading everything I can get my hands on after talking to her over some months ago, studying everything I can get my hands on. I think she's an extraordinary African woman. And I use the term African because my wife's mother is from the same province in India as her mom. So I've lived in that world for 50 years. And I know that population and the Dalit people and the other African peoples who are still fighting and struggling for survival in their blackness in India. My wife came via Trinidad. So if we have anything in government this go around that's going to give the Black community in America some sort of edge, it's Ms. Harris. With the other elements that's in the cabinet and so forth, I think she's going to be the strategic organizing instrument for those other Black elements, if anybody can be. Because I had no problem with the district attorney. If you're district attorney, you're supposed to throw fools in jail and break the law. I really had no problem with that. But when she took the stance, people don't understand how powerful that was to take the stance against the death penalty on behalf of a Black man who had killed a white cop at that time. That took courage beyond anything you can imagine. And then still hoping you can have a political future in California, which is literally a police state, especially at that time. You know? So I've got a lot of respect for her political skills. Her mentor, Brother Brown, you know, I lived in California for a long time, off and on, back and forth, still have family there. And Willie Brown was always our hero because this was a Black man with the skills you had never seen in state government in that way. Affecting the kind of change, mentoring multiple other Black people into the system. People tried to make it a negative relationship, but you got to know the political history of Willie Brown to understand the positive of that relationship. So I give her all my prayers, but then there's something that is on the population of Black people at large. Where is our agenda that we take to her? Okay. Where is our proposal that we take to her? I'm not saying she should know what all of us know, because she doesn't. She's doing some other stuff. Are we going to put together an agenda? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10 things we would love to see and prioritize the first 3 to 5 come out of this administration in the next 4 years. That's on us. And not only Ms. Harris, we've got 50-something persons in the Congress of African descent. I think it's 57, 58 now. We need to put some fire under their feet. They write laws, you know, and we're not doing it. We elect them and then we go and sit down and say, okay, do your Black thing. They're not going to do that. We have to have a constancy of pressure through petitions and proposals and face-to-face whenever we can get it. And I love Sister Kujichagulia because I always say the false notion of white supremacy. Well, girl, you don't give me a definition. You got to text me that thing so I can work it, right? And we can lay it out there. But I think we've got a chance for change like we've never had using government in the history of America. Now, how do we use it? There's somewhere between 45 and 60 million of us who's not in the political office. Now, how did that population of the 45 to 60 million, their representative, get their case before Kamala, get their case, like already me and some comrades have sent our case on Nigeria to the sister who's going to be in the UN. She sent the note back. She was very courteous. She answered. She said, I haven't been sworn in yet, but we wanted to be on the top of the desk when she hits that seat, that the Fulani and the Yoruba situation is crisis. We need some response that's positive. So we've got to do that kind of thing with the vice president and with other Black members of Congress. But I think she's a plus for Black people and a big plus.
Okay. All right. That's Great. And Sister Kojichakulia, what's your view on that point? Hold on.
Put your
Yeah,
unmute.
yeah.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Yeah.
That is so true. Both what Baba Obutashaka has said and Baba Smalls has said, that is so real. Of course, very simplistically, if Kamala Harris were to walk into a KKK rally, would she be accepted? No, she's Black. So is she Black spiritually, culturally, psychologically, emotionally, politically, physiologically? These are all things that we are all grappling with because of our dysfunction, thanks to racism. She is a plus for us. But the bigger plus, she's a plus for humanity in general. But the bigger plus is us. Again, she got there because of the people. The people have to be working on a plan, on a vision at all times, and be pushing those who are elected, because this is a republic, not a democracy. Those who are elected in the republic are responsible to us. We rarely hold them responsible. Every city councilman, assemblyman, mayor, governor, for everyone is beholden to us. What we do, often we put them in office and then we go on about our business and expect them to do everything. The reality is the people do have the power. We don't use our power. And I personally like to focus on issues more than individuals, because the issues will be here long after the individual has left office. Obama is gone. These issues are still here with us. If we focus on the principles as opposed to the people, and we focus on our responsibility of correcting the wrongs that have been created by this American government, then we have a better chance of winning if we all participate. We cannot look at an individual and think that one individual is going to solve all of the enormity of issues that we are facing. It is up to all of us. All of us have to be involved. All of us have to be engaged. And most of all of us have to be united on the same page and plan. We have to come together and see what is it that we want, because we all have different things that we're looking for. We vocalize them differently, we express them differently, but basically they're the same freedoms that we all are looking for in terms of humanity. We have to come together and organize to put our proposals before those who are elected. And then there are a lot of things that we can do without our elected representatives, that we can do on our own to make change in our families, our communities, our countries on the planet. We don't do that. So we need to step up our game and look at our responsibility and get organized so that we can hold our elected politicians responsible, but more so we have to hold ourselves responsible. What are we doing every day personally to bring change about? What are we doing personally every day to ensure unity, and that we are cooperating as one unit of human intelligence and genius to bring forth the spiritual realities of humanism that we as African people designed from the dawn of civilization? We need to reinstate that on this planet. No one has a better chance of doing this than those people who created those concepts in the first place, Africans. So we all have a major responsibility as individuals. And one of our biggest responsibilities is to unify as one group with one mission and aim to eliminate all of the insanity and dysfunction that we have come to adopt under all the dysfunction of racism. So we all have responsibility here. We can't just put it on a vice president, a president. We can't put it on any individual. We have to look at ourselves, because a lot of the things that have not been completed to this day are because of the apathy and inaction in our own communities, and that we take on ourselves. So we have to be more vigilant in what we do. We have to be clear about what we're doing. We have to get organized. We have to get into some organizations. There must be elders in that organization. I have no idea where I would be with not the love and instruction from my elders, Obutashaka, Baba Smalls, John Henry Clark, Chancellor Williams, Dr. Ben. I mean, everything comes from the elders. And then we see this culture of youth looking at youth organizations and putting youth with youth, eliminating the elders, because then that eliminates our lineage and therefore our legacy and where we will be able to go. Those organizations must also have women in them. They must have balance, because that is Ma'at. That's how we operate as African people. There must be youth, there must be age, there must be women, there must be men. And there is not one. It's one unity, but it's a group of people. We cannot look at Kamala Harris as one person to solve everything for us. That is insanity. Look in the mirror. Those are the people who are going to solve things.